Welcome to the group exhibit Hydrogen and Fuel Cells here at Hannover Fair 2013. My name is Alexa von Busse. I'd like to invite you now to come here, to sit down, to have a drink on the house and to listen to our next conversation, which will be very interesting because we have an economic outlook and a view on the situation of the fuel cell industry in Germany. And therefore, I'd like to introduce two of our guests from the VDMA. The VDMA is the German Engineering Association. And I may introduce the Managing Director and the Chairman to you. It's Johannes Schiel and Guido Gummert coming up on stage. Please welcome them with a warm hand.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, Mr. Gummert.
Hi.
Hi, Mr. Schiel. So I already said it, the VDMA is the German Engineering Association. But before we are coming to the survey, maybe you give us a short introduction of what you are doing there.
Yeah, German Engineering Federation is a huge industry association. We have around 3,000 member companies organized in sub-associations. And the VDMA Working Group or VDMA Fuel Cell Council is a group of 60 companies. It's basically fuel cell system suppliers, fuel cell component suppliers, and research institutes who are very industry-minded.
Mm-hmm. And you are the Managing Director, you are the Chairman, Mr. Gummert. What's your role within the VDMA?
Our mission is to protect the climate and resources with highly efficient fuel cell technology, and therefore we have two working groups, an industry network where we bring together our members to find synergies, to reduce costs together, and to develop technology. And the second workshop we have is industry politics, and this is to do the representation for the industry, do the lobbying.
The PR, yeah. Face the politics. Okay, all right. Thank you. I'd like to remind the public that this is a public forum, so whenever a question comes up to your mind, just raise your hand. I come down with a microphone, and you can talk to our guests directly. Okay, so Mr. Schiel, what do you want, let's come to the survey, what do you want to find out with it and how do you do that?
Yeah, we did this survey first time in 2009 and we asked our members in that year, what is your actual revenues? Of course, it's a tough question for the fuel cell industry, since in 2009 there was almost no industry there. It was mainly research and it was maybe some projects on the market and some tiny companies with some fuel cells. Maybe there was one exception, SFC Energy, which was smart fuel cell in Germany that time, and the rest was mainly research driven. And it was quite early for such a survey. So we repeated that survey in 2011 and decided to have such survey every 2 years. And to develop statistics on the fuel cell industry with an outlook on the future. Since we as an industry association, we think that for the industry it's quite important to know where we stand and where the future is for this industry. And therefore we think it's time to develop such statistics and such prognosis. That's the background of that survey. And now we repeat it every 2 years with more and more companies, and try to find out what their interest is.
We see the companies on the screen here, and I see most of them are exhibiting with us, which is nice and represents the community as well. So this is the third survey you're doing, and we're bringing out the results right now. Let's go back to 2011 when the second survey took place, and that was the first time for us here at the public forum that we came out with the results. Let's just remind what kind of results that were. Let's just give us one or two numbers. Let's say employees, jobs, and revenue, for example.
Yeah, in 2011 we asked what are your revenues in 2010? What were your revenues in 2010? How many employees did you have? And we asked around 200 companies, and not all of them answered. Some of them didn't have employees at all because they were just with some students doing some research, but some already had some employed, and it was around 1,000 employees, a little bit more than 1,000 employees, and we counted, and it was around 60 million euro. So the average revenue per employee was very limited, and it was some employees, little revenues.
Okay, let's come to this year results. Where's Stephanie? There are press releases lying on the table, so...
Stephanie is over there.
Yeah, and Stephanie is standing over there. She can hear us. You see us. There's Stephanie. She has more press releases for you if you need some. Yeah, let's start. So what amount of revenue do you expect in the future? I think we have a chart here too.
Yeah, of course, we asked these 200 companies, not all of them answered, so we had some figures from our survey, and we have some additional estimation. The figure plus the estimation for 2012 was 80 million euro, and we expect for this year to overcome the 100 million euro hurdle.
I must interrupt you here because I see a gap in 2014, and then there's a big rise from 105 estimated to 350. Do you expect something happening there, like a governmental program coming up? Because otherwise these numbers can't be realistic, right?
Well, you want to answer?
Yeah, if you look to the 2012 and 2013 numbers, they are in the same range as what we have seen the year before. It is more or less a stagnation, and what we need now is a governmental program. The technology is on a level which is technical, ready for the market, and you can see that in the forecast for 2020, because this has increased tremendously compared with the last survey. It is more than double of what the companies have told us 2 years ago. Therefore, this is based strongly on their technical improvements they have done with their products. So they believe the market is upcoming, the products are good, and all what we need now is the right environment to ramp up the technology. It means the market needs to grow now.
And that's also the reason, I guess, why you divide into survey results, actually, which is the blue bar, and the additional estimation of the VDMA, which is the yellow bar. It's pretty optimistic there, but
the reason is the blue bar is the concrete numbers which we have received from our members, but they are not all of this branch, so the branch is much larger, and we know the size, and based on that we have backwards calculated a factor, and the factor comes up with that large volume.
Okay.
Well, to come back to your question,
yeah.
the huge jump between 2013 and 2015 is also due to the first small scale ramp up in some companies. Of course, we see this calculation is only for stationary applications and early markets. We are not discussing cars here, so cars are excluded from this revenue, from this survey. And we see on the stationary field with Calux and with NF field and with Calux 2, we see that there is some framework already there for this ramp up, but it's not enough. There is also in these figures, I would say, there is some hope for some additional political stability, some additional political framework. Without viable market conditions, this will not be possible. Mm-hmm. But that's the result of our survey. The companies are quite optimistic, not so optimistic in the short term, but very optimistic in the long term. Yeah. So there is, of course, a hurdle to overcome, but there is not only hope, there is now we have more and more answers from the companies, and it's more and more figures we count, and therefore we think it's quite substantial survey in the meantime, but we are still a very young industry, so statistics needs its time, and statistics needs to grow.
Of course.
And furthermore, you can see that we currently are in front of an election, and therefore there's also a reason for the stagnation. The current government is focusing on renewables, wind and solar, and therefore, fuel cells are not part of their program. What we need for the next government is that their focus is more strongly on fuel cells, and then if we have a market introduction program, then we will get to the 2050 numbers.
Okay, let's get to the next result. It's about employees, and we have the next chart here. Same optimism here. Let's give the public an imagination of what dimensions we are talking about, because 1,500, 6,100. Could you compare it to, for example, you just mentioned it, the wind industry? How many people are working in the wind industry currently?
Yeah. In Germany, we have figures from the Ministry for the Environment. It's 100,000 employees. Or even 117,000 in the year of 2012. But that is direct and indirect employees. It's not only the employees in the manufacturing industries. So if you see the employees in the manufacturing industries, you have around 40,000, 45,000 employed, direct employed in the machinery and manufacturers plant industry. So this is of course, it is similar to offshore wind today. Mm-hmm. Offshore wind energy, that's 7,000 up to 10,000 employed, directly and indirectly employed. So we are in 2020 where offshore wind is today. That's our hope in stationary and early markets.
Okay. As you said earlier, you left out the transport systems here in this survey, but you had a closer look on the stationary applications and the early markets. So what development are you expecting for that? I get the next chart on.
These are the stationary applications, and you also can see here in kilowatt that the expectation for 2020 is 200,000 kilowatt, including the micro CHP in smaller sizes, 5 kW, 20 kW, and also larger sizes of 250 kW systems. We see that this view is very realistic because it is based on the feedback from the members who are involved in such programs. And just for micro CHP, for example, we estimate a volume of more than 70,000 systems. If you want to see these systems, you can do that on that fair, on the booth E53, the initiative fuel cell. It will show all these current systems which are in the field trial stage. But it shows that you can touch and feel it, and they are currently tested in homes. So the view is realistic, and it shows that a new industry is growing currently.
Mm-hmm. I think the kilowatt, we are currently at 2,350 kilowatt, and that's not the scale we are heading to, or is enough for now. Where do you think can we get comparable? I mean, if I imagine the line coming like this, when do you think the technology will get comparable? In which year? It's not easy to answer.
We need to be comparable. We need the market introduction program starting in 2015, because you, as an end client, you only buy the system if it is competitive with other technologies. Therefore, if we are in smaller volumes, we need to have a governmental program to support us, as they currently do with other technologies as well, photovoltaic, for example. Or the current government has done a lot for standard CHP with the German Impulse program, or with the Kraft-Wärme-Kopplungsfunding. Something like that is also required for fuel cells, and then we can become compatible in 2020.
Okay, so 2020 would be the forecast. Okay, let's have a quick look on the early markets as well. How do you expect development there?
Yeah, we already saw a similar figure in 2011. So the figure on the early market side has quite a stable development, small growth for the last few years. But it's mainly driven by one or two companies with very small systems, let's say a few 10-watt systems, the majority of these. But in the future time, we will see more and more of systems with larger capacities, like hundreds of watt or even kilowatt systems. And we see more and more companies popping up with more and more different applications. The early markets are very broad, like APUs, auxiliary power units, or backup power systems, all kinds of special applications, as we call them in Germany, or early markets, as they are called in other countries.
But when I compare the two slides we just saw and that one, it seems to me that the stationary applications are taking over, right? It's a little bit higher.
Yeah, the stationary applications are taking over. Let's say in 2015, the majority of the systems will be stationary systems. But in the stationary field, we have 3 categories of sizes. In the early markets field, we have all kinds of sizes. So it's very hard to say in terms of installed capacity who is making when stationaries are going to take over the majority. But sooner or later, stationary systems will take over, and the early markets have their follow-up markets in the broad field of applications in stationary and transport markets.
Yeah. I remind the public that this is a public forum and you're allowed to ask questions whenever they come up to your mind. So raise your hand and I come around with a microphone. As we are already running out of time, I get few questions here.
Hello. Can the companies cut costs by sharing components and by standardization? And can your association do something to facilitate this process?
Yeah, we are doing that already, and we have certain project groups, as we call them. As Mr. Gummert already explained, we have 2 pillars: the policy pillar for lobbying activities and the networking pillar for the technological work. And in this technological working group, industry network, as we call it, we have project groups for HT-PEM systems. There are also some companies from Denmark active in that group. And we also have activities on the SOFC technology sphere, and we also have activities on the PEM systems. And we have a project group called RCS, Regulations, Codes and Standards. Of course, we discuss such things, but it's not an easy task for a small industry association like VDMA. No, we have a lot of experience in that, but with fuel cells, we are still a very small, limited group. So we need to grow with the market, with the industry.
Just one example so that you understand what we are doing. We have, for example, discussed connectors. And interesting was when the manufacturer said, we want to have a standard for connectors, the supplier said, oh yes, we have here one. Another supplier said, yeah, I have another version. And then we asked the specification approval for Reformate, for example, easy connection, cheap. And there was a problem. There was no standard what every manufacturer could use. So we developed a standard for these connectors. And you can see them if you look to the initial fuel cell booth, and if you look into these systems, you will see them. So this was very successful. And we have some more examples, pumps, inverter technologies, electronics. So, but this is very important to discuss these topics, because otherwise you think as a supplier, hey, I have a great solution, and the manufacturer thinks, it's a good solution, but it's not covering my specification. So sometimes help.
Standardization helps to reduce costs. Therefore, we need more standardization.
Yeah, and for the Japanese market, this is a big advantage, because all Japanese suppliers have discussed with the manufacturers the standards before they started the development. And this is missing here. Therefore, we try to close a gap with the VDMA fuel cells to make sure that we can compete with other areas on the world, on the global market.
And that's a very good work and a very good last word, because I'm very sorry we are so short of time. But for everyone who's a journalist and interested into, interested into The press briefing is taking place at room number 415, which is here in Can 4. I think Mr. Schiel, Mr. Gummert will meet you at the info counter and guide you to this room. So everybody who's a journalist and interested in other results of the survey, just meet at the info counter. And for everyone else who has further questions, I think you might be at the booth later on too, which is over there. It's booth number E51. And you'll be there in about an hour, I guess, to answer further questions of the public. So thank you very much, Mr. Gummert. Thank you very much, Mr. Schiel, to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.